Good day, everybody. I'm David Norman at Aquarius Pearls of Wisdom Chats, and it's March 2021, and I'm so delighted to bring to you today Margot McKinney, who's in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia, and we were both just discussing the delights of being locked down and not allowed to travel at the moment. So welcome, Margot.
Thank you very much, David. How lovely to see you.
And you, so good. And in the Zoom room as we are.
Yes, the room that we've become so accustomed to. It used to be the cabin of an aircraft, and now it's the Zoom room.
The Zoom room, our new home away from home. Margot, can I ask you? We're talking to lots of people who some might not know anything about the jewelry business, pearl business, and of you. So can I ask you where you grew up and studied in life?
I grew up in Toowoomba in Queensland, which is 100 kilometres west of Brisbane. And that's where our family business started 137 years ago. My great-grandfather came from Ireland to find his fortune in gold and was on a train to go up to the goldfields, and the train stopped in Toowoomba for much longer than he had anticipated. So he got off the train and thought, I'll go and have a haircut. And he searched around the small town and there was no barber shop. So he thought, well, here's an opportunity. I know I can make some money here. And so he stayed in Toowoomba and opened a barber shop that became, very successful, and that was how our business started. But so I went to school in Toowoomba, and when I was growing up, we had a business that was really a large department store. We sold everything. We sold toys, boats, sporting goods, guns, furniture, electrical goods. We had an interior design department. We had a very large fine china and silverware business, and we always had a jewelry department. And it was really the jewelry department that I fell in love with. And one thing that we have always sold in our family is very fine pearls. My grandfather used to go to Japan, to Kobe, and my parents. So it was always a big part of our business to acquire very fine pearls and to sell them. So that was how I started.
It is amazing, isn't it, how one twist of fate, like the train stopping in Toowoomba, changes a life and then leads to like a dynasty in your case, all because the train stopped. I had an experience like that when in 1980s, Qantas rang me. I was flying to Los Angeles and they said, we can't send you through Hawaii. Would you have an overnight free stay and go in business class through Papeete in Tahiti? And so I said, could I stay 3 days? And I met some Tahitians and bought some pearls. And my dad had been there in 1967 setting up a pearl farm, but I'd never expected to go myself, really. And then it became a kind of love affair with Tahitian pearls. So it's very much fate in life, isn't it? What leads you somewhere?
It really is, David. And the longer that I'm on this planet, in this living realm, the less I sort of fight things, and because things happen for a reason. Yes. And sometimes that reason isn't obvious at the time, thank goodness. But I'm a big believer in that.
And it's a great lesson then that when things go wrong, sometimes they're really going right. Like if you miss a plane, that could be the one that crashed. Or I know people who missed the World Trade Center planes because they were late getting up that morning, for example. And yeah, we never know, don't we? But we are kind of being lived or led, I think. Yes. I had a great friend, Lydia Duncan, who passed away at 97, and she always said, "Oh, we're being lived. We're just puppets." And there is some sort of unseen thread that guides us, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yes. And sometimes, opportunities, one doesn't recognize them as opportunities, and then if one goes down that road, they are indeed opportunities.
And Margot, you had this great passion for jewelry, and you and your family decided to buy the Hardy Brothers business in the 1980s, was that, which was like the quintessential best jewelry store franchise in Australia, wasn't it?
Yes, I think my father, in our family, there was never any we were never forced into the business. It was never, I always wanted to do it. That's all I ever wanted to do. But my younger two sisters, Sally was an occupational therapist and Jane did hospitality management. So there was never thought that we would all end up in the business. And then suddenly my mother and father ended up with all of us in the business. And I think he thought, well, I've got these three girls. They all seem, they're reasonably capable. What can I do? So my mother and father bought Hardy Brothers from Christopher Skase, which was a very interesting negotiation. And so, we were very proud custodians of Australia's oldest jewelry business, and really enjoyed the experience of owning that iconic business. It was, at the time, it was, when we bought it, it was really an iconic Australian business, and we had a royal warrant to Her Majesty the Queen. So my father was the royal warrant holder, and it was an amazing business, and I learned a lot from that. We had stores in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, the Gold Coast, and Port Douglas, and we did wonderful things like make the Melbourne Cup and sponsored a race on Derby Day. We made the Queen's Cup, and I was had the proud opportunity to hand that to the Prince of Wales when he was in Australia for the Queen's Cup. So there were amazing experiences.
Fantastic. And how long did your family own the business?
For about 12 years.
Yes, that was, and it was quite an amazing time. Was that from the late 80s onwards, or middle 80s?
Late 80s, yes.
Yes.
So my father said, I have the three sisters, and I lived in Sydney, and Jane lived in Melbourne, and Sally lived in Brisbane. We used to joke that we should change the name to Hardy Sisters, Dave.
Hardy Sisters, good idea. It was true. Fantastic. But what an amazing story. And you, of course, have become like one of the most important premier designer jewelers in Australia, and have had amazing success in America. So how did you go to be going for the American business as such?
Well, it's very kind of you to say that, David. I have this idea that everybody has 24 hours in their day and 7 days in their week, and I thought, well, how can I make that time the most efficient and productive that I can? And I thought, well, America is always a place where I have wanted to do business. And it's an exciting, invigorating place to do business. So, and there was always one business where I knew I wanted to be, and that was in Neiman Marcus. And my husband, Peter Kedwell, and I were at we were both in YPO, but when you graduate, you get to be in CEO when you get to be too old to be in YPO. So we were at a conference in Dallas, which is the headquarters of Neiman Marcus, and Peter, knew that that's where I wanted to be, and so he said to me, he rang me one afternoon, and it was our second last day in Dallas, and he said, "Look, I'm in the jewelry department, the precious jewelry department in the downtown store, which is their premier store. It was their original store, and he said, come and meet me." So I went down and I met him, and he was standing in the jewelry department talking to Patty Mitchell, who's the department manager. And he said, "Oh, look, here's my wife now. She's fourth generation in her family's business, jewelry business in Australia. And she's a jewelry designer." And I could see poor Patty go, oh, ho, hum, not another husband. His wife's a genius. So she says that she looked me up and down, and she said, well, she said, really, if you want to do business with Neiman Marcus, you really need to put together a portfolio and present it to the head buyer. And the whole process takes about 6 months. And Peter, who's in the fruit and vegetable business, and his merchandise goes off overnight, and he's always in a hurry, he said, only here until tomorrow. So Patty went into her office, and it was one of those moments, David. The head buyer is always traveling, happened to be in her office, and she said, all right, Patty, if you think that I need to see this woman, then ask her to come in at 4 o'clock this afternoon. So I had 30 pieces. This was about 13 years ago. Yes. I had 30 pieces with me, David. So I went back to the hotel. I got these 30 pieces out of the safe and duly arrived at her office at 4 o'clock. I took Peter with me, thank goodness, because, you know, I was a retailer, so I'd always been on the other side of the buying desk. And I think as a creative, you know, artists are, I feel, you know, I'm always thinking, oh gosh, is it, you know, is what I have created really good enough? I love it, but is it, you know, is it something other people are going to love? I don't think I have that on my own, that feeling. So I put my 30 pieces out, and Lisa Haddo, who has since become a very good friend, spent about 30 minutes looking at them and turning them upside down, and I'm going, oh. And after about 30 minutes, she said, Margot, I think this will be perfect for 14 of our 40 stores.
Wow.
And I nearly fell off my chair, David. That's why I was
how fabulous.
Because I nudged him at 2 o'clock the next morning, and I said, did she really say that? And so I took myself off to the Basel Fair, which was pretty soon after that meeting, and acquired some more gems and some more, you know, pearls, and designing a much larger collection. And in the beginning, you know, I didn't really know how to put stock into 14 stores. That's a lot of stores.
Yes.
And I originally thought, well, perhaps what I need is, you know, 14 or 15 of everything that I make. But it wasn't where my heart was, and it was impossible to do with how I, you know, with how I work, because you can't find 14 pearls that are the same, or 14 beautiful tourmalines that are the same.
No.
My design ethos was really true to how I feel, and it's really all one of a kind. So everything that I design nearly everything is one of a kind. Some things I can recreate, but most things are one of a kind, and that is where my passion is. And now I'm in more Neiman Marcus stores, and I'm very proudly in Bergdorf Goodman as well, which is they have the same ownership. And just before COVID, I was given a very important wall in Bergdorf Goodman, which is very prime real estate for
it really is, isn't it? The best of the best, yes.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't seen my wall, but when business gets to be, you know, back to a little bit closer to normal in the US, I'll see my wall in Bergdorf Goodman. But a couple of years ago, I was just so excited because they told me that I was their #2 vendor for that year for the whole company.
That's fantastic, Margot. Wow, fantastic.
It was very exciting, David. And and I'm very grateful to all of my remarkable collectors and the people who followed me and wait for my new pieces to come out, because they're just incredibly important, and they wear my jewelry so beautifully, and it's really it's a bit of an overused saying, but it's very humbling.
I've found that with the customers I've got to know who wear our jewelry here in Australia and Europe, and especially in the United States, that there's a kind of love and enthusiasm and an amazing relationship that you make together. And it's just very humbling, and isn't it, to realize how much everybody appreciates your talent in this case, and they're just so grateful to be able to buy from you. Whereas we're so grateful everyone's buying and wearing, but it's a lovely interplay. And you know how they have that saying in America, the business of America is business. It really is a very lively place to make the business, isn't it? I've always had the greatest fun. It was always a bit of a slog getting there and coming back and being jet lagged, but when you're there, it's terrific, isn't it? Yeah,
it really is. They're very, I find them very uplifting, and they're very confident. It's a very uplifting place to do business.
Yes, and you make the most extraordinary jewelry. You know, you have an amazing website, and you have amazing jewelry, and you need a certain, I think, a certain personality to wear it. You're outgoing and loving life, and full of enthusiasm, and it goes completely with your jewelry. It's like real hats off to you, Margot, in every way. Can I ask you where you get your inspiration for making and designing, and do you particularly love? I have to ask you a pearly question. I know you've made some amazing pearl collections, but can I ask you? It's three questions in one, really. Where you get your inspiration? Do you have a particular love of pearls? And who has been a sort of mentor? We both know Bill Reed, for example, who knew me when I was a baby, and my dad was best man at his wedding, and he's been like the founding father of many people in Broome. And I know you collaborated with him a bit, but who's kind of mentored you along the way and inspired you?
You know, initially it was my mother and my father, because of their great love of pearls, and because of their long history with pearling businesses in Japan. And but I really love big jewels, David. So
Yes,
Australian South Sea pearls were, I just adore them because of their size and the luster, and I particularly love the Baroque ones because I think we all appreciate the rarity and the value of a perfect round strand. But there's something about the character in Baroque pearls that's really something. But the inspiration for my jewelry, I find, really comes from the gems and from the pearls. And I can have a collection of pearls that I might have in the vault, and then I can bring them out and I'll say, oh my gosh, here, it'll now I know exactly what to do with that pearl, or I find another one so that it makes a beautiful pair, or this one that's that's at the top of this tassel.
yes,
So it's the gems are my inspiration, alongside the incredible women who wear the jewelry. I think that they're very inspiring because of the way they put themselves, they wear their jewelry so creatively, and because I find Australian women and American women very stylish and very chic and confident of their own style, and not driven by a particular brand, whether it be fashion or a jewelry brand. They're very confident to put their own look together. And I think I find those women very inspiring.
yes, fabulous, Margot. So, would you have any words of wisdom for the next generation? If for the younger people who are contemplating the jewelry business, my nephew's in the business in London, Charlie, and he's 25, and he said, you're always talking about the good times in the business, but when am I going to have because he's gone into COVIDs, although he did go and work with Nick Pass-Bailey on the farms, and he's friends and goes to all the auctions and everything. But now that he's in lockdown, of course, he's saying, when are the good times coming? But have you got any words of inspiration for young people thinking of actually coming into the jewelry business as a livelihood and an industry?
Well, David, I guess I'm in your situation. I have my nephew has been in my business for about 4 years, and he is very enthusiastic. He's very good at what he does, and I'm really proud to be and excited about working with him. He was at the GIA in Carlsbad in California and was 2 weeks away from finishing his GIA degree, and they closed the campus. So unfortunately for him, that was really bad luck and poor timing. But he's been back here since, and he's just about to finish. But I think that it is a very exciting business for young people to be in. It is a people business, and it's all about relationships. And you and I have known each other for a long time, David, and it's through this marvelous business that we have a friendship. And I find remarkable and really important relationships in my business, in my life, through my business, from my amazing collectors and the people all over the world who buy my jewelry and wear it so beautifully, to suppliers, my pearl merchants and pearl farmers, and my incredible gem cutters. And I have really, really very special, very important relationships with all those people. So it's not a business, it's a life. And I hope that young people might see it as that. I'm fortunate in that old saying where, if you wake up every morning and get to do what you love, then it's not a job. I very firmly fall into that category.
Yeah.
And I really love what I do, and I feel, I have my own business that I started in America, and I have a really lovely salon which I'm sitting in here in Brisbane, and amazing clients in Brisbane, and incredible people who I'm able to find beautiful things for and make beautiful things for. Plus, we also have McKinney's, our family business that's 137 years old. And I very much feel that I am the custodian of that business, and that I'm guarding it and growing it and nurturing it for the next generation. So I have Andrew Welsh, who's with me, who's 25, and my other nephew, another one of my nephews, Hugh, who is just working part-time in the business while he's finishing his degree at UQ. So, how amazing to have a fifth, 5 generations in a family. So I feel very fortunate.
Fabulous. And one last question, Margot, is what's next for you on the horizon, do you see, for the next 12 months?
Well, I've rather enjoyed consolidating and being creative in one spot over the last year. I'm expanding the family business. I was able to acquire the store next door, so we're more than doubling the size of that. And just creating. I've been working and designing more pieces of jewelry to come through, and actually working through a few things in the vault, David, that I have had there for quite some time, and I've brought them out. And my goodness, it's so beautiful. Some of those things that I've been, that have been in the vault for a number of years, I just can't wait. They're in the workshops now, and I'm so excited about seeing them become real pieces of jewelry.
Fantastic. Well, Margot, it's been such a pleasure to have this chat and to get to know all about your history and life here in America a bit more. And thank you so much for chatting with us today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be included in this rather esteemed group.
Lots of love, Margot.
Thank you, David.